One of the things that I really wanted to accentuate in the storytelling, we really played with the color palette to make sure that we felt the coldness, not only in the atmosphere, but in the relationship between the two characters. And as the story begins to evolve, the palette gets warmer. So they had to go on a journey together to figure out like what parts of each other that they could love and heal and evolve.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, a road trip leads to possible life-changing revelations in director Christine Swanson's romantic drama, Albany Road. The film tells the story of Celeste Simmons, a New York executive on her way to the most important meeting of her career. Forced to share a rental car with her ex-fiancé's mother, she discovers that the mother is hiding a major secret about her ex. In addition to Albany Road, Swanson's directorial credits include the feature films All About You, All About Us, and For the Love of Ruth, the movie for television To Hell and Back, and episodes of Chicago PD, P-Valley, MacGyver, Bel Air, and Roswell, New Mexico. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Swanson spoke with director Shaz Bennett about filming Albany Road. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Hey, everybody. Christine, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking me to moderate because I just loved the film. I loved the whole emotion, and you were the writer and director, and I was just
Thank you.
Exactly. I was just telling you, it resonated so much with me with my own mom, but my mom is not like Lynn, but my mother passed away, so I wanted to hear, as the writer director, what was the impetus to make this movie?
So about 25 years ago, I did a movie called All About You, and it starred Renee Elise Goldsberry.
Yeah.
In many ways, I'd like to say I discovered her. Right. It's a running joke. She went on to play Angelica Schuyler in Hamilton. And then Debbie Allen was in the movie as well. So I saw two intergenerational Black women. And I thought, I don't ever see that on the screen. And I just kind of filed that away. And I'm like, that would be an interesting premise for a movie. Like put two intergenerational women who hated each other and make it a road trip in a snowstorm. I kid you not, I filed that away. And then fast forward many years later, my husband's mom passed away from breast cancer, and she didn't tell us how bad it was until towards the end. And it just haunted me. And that was the idea, was to put those two elements together in a film. And I wanted it to be a romantic comedy. It became a romantic dramedy. And so the idea was it was Thelma and Louise meets Terms of Endearment meets Fargo.
I love that. Can you talk about when you're writing it, you have these scenes in your brain, but then at a certain point you have to turn your writer brain off and turn it into directing. And what were some of the key points in the script you knew you had to hold on to, and what others did you let go of altogether?
Well, 90% of the script is in the film. Some elements we changed because I actually wrote this script for a 30-year-old Renee Goldsberry. And then life happened, mainly I kind of stepped away from the industry for 15 years to raise 4 kids. Renee kept going through Broadway, and she's in Girls 5 Eva now. And I still wanted to cast Renee, but now it's the 53-year-old Renee. And so there were elements of the story that did not work as fluidly. So we kind of talked through some things that Renee experienced in terms of her infertility. And we interweaved that element into the story once I cast J. Alphonse Nicholson as her romantic lead because she was like, oh my gosh, he's too young. I'm going to look like a cougar, but we folded that element into the storytelling. And I think, first of all, she just looks way younger than she is. And secondly, their chemistry is like bananas. So it just works out. So part of the directing element is allow the chemistry to happen and to capture it. It's like you did the work already on the script. So the rest of it is just create space for these really elegant actors to do what they do, and great crew, elegant crew to do what they do. And, I'm the facilitator to make sure we have the zone to make the magic happen.
Sometimes as a writer director, I find myself when I'm directing going, who wrote this? And I get so angry. Was there any moments that were particularly I'm from a place with a lot of snow and those spins and the car stuff, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be hard to pull off. And, so I was just curious if anything, first of all, how did you do those? Cause I really felt them, cause I've definitely done those spin outs on icy roads, but did you previs?
So we shot this movie in Champaign, Illinois. And the reason why we went to Illinois is because what? It snows, right? So I wanted snow to be a character in the film. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. And one of the things you never really get to see in film is Black people in snow. And I was determined to do it. And so the location helped. It was freezing. I wouldn't recommend shooting in cold weather like that. Unless you're a passionate filmmaker. Right. So yeah, who wrote this? I only say that in TV though. When I'm directing television, no cap. But all the elements that we needed for this to take place, I think happens when you find the right locations. Like that cabin that we shot in became a character in and of itself. All of Champaign is a character in and of itself. And it's really inspiring as an independent filmmaker is when you go into locations and it starts speaking to you. Again, my job is to capture that. All right. It's already singing. All right. So again, I will say the script did the job, and then we did our jobs, and the rest is just capturing and hoping that it all works together in the edit.
Yeah. Well, it really, the film really does live in the performances and in these, who knows what, when, and what are they hiding from who. And talk about this ensemble. I mean, Grand Dames is Lynn Whitfield to Lil Murder. Yeah. How did you pull this whole ensemble together?
So I direct a lot of television as you do as well. And what I don't tell people is when I'm directing TV, I'm casting movies in my head all the time. I'm hiring crew people. It just gives us an opportunity to work with a variety of talent that I may not direct in the kind of movies that I might direct. So I met J. Alphonse Nicholson directing P-Valley. And on the first day that I met him, I'm looking at him. I'm like, this dude is a movie star and he doesn't even know it. So that's when you get them, when they don't know, right? And then secondly, I thought, gosh, he's like a young Marlon Brando. And I have these thoughts all the time about actors. It's like I just paint with actors, and I just saw what was possible. Mind you, I was directing him playing a rapper. Right. I cast him playing a college professor at Georgetown. I could just see his heart, and I could see what's possible. So that's that. Renee, I've known for over 25 years. Renee's a rock star. She's a literal rock star. And I've always been puzzled by why she hasn't played more leading lady roles. And I'm like, well, instead of complaining about it, I'll just do something about it. So it was a pleasure to cast her to play this. Lynn, we actually found through the casting process. And I initially thought maybe Lynn wasn't the right person for this because she usually plays those kind of elegant highfalutin folks like in Greenleaf and what have you. And then and this is why you can't judge actors by the work you see on television or in other films. You have to actually meet them. Again, you have to look into their hearts. So I had a meeting with her. It was actually FaceTime. I knew 10 seconds in. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Paula, So it was a wonderful discovery. And for Lynn, I personally think this is some of the best work in her career. Lynn Whitfield has never really played comedy like this, and she kills it. So she kind of reminds me of like Shirley MacLaine, she just owned it and was so generous. I'm sure she wasn't used to working on a low budget film like this, where we had her running around in the winter with not a lot of coverage. I'm like, just wait in the car, until we set up the next shot. And she was so gracious.
Turn the heat up.
Yes. And she was cool. She just sat there and she would say to me, she'd say, I know what this is. Don't worry, because I was worried about not having the bells and whistles for this.
I saw an interview with her, and she talks about how you guys had this almost shorthand where you were sort of like, you're playing these characters you always play, and you got to ground it back to Paula. And I love that because I love actors so much. I loved working with actors and finding those little touch tones. But I'm sure you've worked with Renee, did that come about with all the actors?
So particularly with Lynn, because I'm so granular with these characters, it's like I know who they are. And Lynn, again, she comes from this, think about her in Greenleaf, she plays Josephine Baker. It's elegant and elevated type of characters. And I told her, Paula's not that. And so every now and then she'd float there, and our code word for each other was folksy. That's what she called it. She called it folksy. I called it Detroit. I said, I need you to be a little bit more Detroit. She's like, I got it. Folksy. So anytime we said that, she would snap back into Paula, and the rest, I think, is going to be history.
That's so cool.
For Lynn Whitfield.
I love that. Was there other actors? Were there other little things that you've worked with Renee before, mm-hmm. So is there ever points? I always find as a director, I find myself like, you figure out what they need.
Sure.
And how do I figure out how to direct them? And every single actor is different.
So Gary Dordan, who plays the character Phil, you just feel bad for him because his character is pretty much like not the guy that wins the girl. But this is the third movie I've directed Gary in. And Gary was so excited to play comedy, so he thought. And so his idea was to make this character a little bit like to the left and a bit kooky. And I'm like, Gary, you really have to play this straight. Okay, because if you're kooky off the bat, we're going to hate you, and we understand why she doesn't want to be with you. But if you play it straight, we're going to feel bad for you, and we're going to go on the journey with you as well. So you have to ground Phil in that, so Celeste has a real obstacle to overcome. And he was so disappointed, but he showed up for the task.
Yeah. Did you keep a running kind of chart? I mean, I know your editor you've worked with for 18 years.
Risha Al-Assadi, yes.
And she's edited everything you've done. And did you guys know from the beginning with the script, like who knew what when and where they were? And did it change in the edit? Did you move scenes or change anything?
I don't do those kind of charts because it's like I know the story.
Yeah.
So at every moment that we have with the actors, we just need to know what the goals are. And I'm typically very clear, and so are the actors. So we just aim for that. And I trust that it's all going to come together. And I trust it because I wrote the script. And just build. We're just building. And we do it scene by scene. Sometimes like when I direct television, sometimes we're overwhelmed with like big sequences and stunts. And so I get the part about pre-visualizing, and I do a lot of that. But really, it's the question that comes up is, how do you eat a Brontosaurus burger? One bite at a time. And that's really how I approach directing, is like just be in the moment. And if we can do that as directors, the energy the actors pick up. Mm-hmm. But if I'm all over the place, like worrying, like do the pieces come together, they feel that. Yeah. So typically I just focus on the moment at hand, and let's build these scenes and make sure that we're emotionally connecting where we need to be, and trust that the story will come together, because again, we did it on the page first.
Well, it definitely did come together. Speaking of your directorial team or the DGA, what a beautiful theater. And, the ADs and UPMs can really, help or ruin a movie, especially at this budget where it's like, and you and your husband 100% self-financed.
We did.
And so you're making this on a DGA
low budget
agreement. Mm-hmm. Talk about that team and how y'all found them.
Yeah, a lot of this. So because we shot in Illinois, we had an Illinois team. My UPM, Brett Hayes, they just knew how to make the budget work. They knew what crew and talent that we could get locally, and then we knew which ones to bring, from LA or what have you. You can't do anything without a great AD. We know this. Like, you can live or die by a great AD. It's interesting. I'm going to shout out Kevin Costner here. He's one of the best ADs I've ever worked with. And he's here. Raise your hand, Kevin. He knows this. Thank you, buddy. Met him on P-Valley. And that is when I knew like how crucial an AD could destroy a production, So we had some great people. Chicago, I directed Chicago PD in Chicago. I love shooting in Illinois. Great crew base. I would love to shoot in LA more, but the jobs are not here for some reason. We know why, but let's bring them back here and put our people to work here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Who did you bring in from, like, your DP, your production designer, because the cinematography is beautiful. There's a lot of really intimate moments. Who did you bring in?
So the first person was my husband and producer, Michael Swanson. Raise your hand. Yay. For some reason, he was gracious enough to risk everything to finance this film. So we shopped the script around in Hollywood for years and years and years. And we got one bite. And there was a producer who wanted to take it to Fox Searchlight. He was like, we're going to attach a director to this and get this movie made. And I was like, wait a minute. I'm a director. And at that time, I don't know how many films I hadn't done. He's like, well, you're kind of like nobody. So, we got to get a name to this. And ironically, the name he was going to get was one of my classmates from film school. And I was like, there's no way that Malcolm Lee would want to direct this knowing I could. Yeah. So I took the script back and I was like, adios. So we ended up making it ourselves. We have 4 kids. All 4 of our kids worked on the film as well. One of my son runs all of my social media. It's a family affair. So that's very important to say, because as a mother, it's a lot to be a full-time filmmaker, but it helps when your whole family's behind you. So thank you, Michael Swanson. We had a DP named Spencer Combs. I met Spencer directing a pilot, and I just thought, like, wow, this guy lights quickly and beautifully. Mm-hmm. Wow, this guy's really nice. He talks well to the director and the crew. Wow, he just has a great attitude. So I had a blast working with him, and I just mentally stored him. Mm-hmm. So he shoots like Sons of Anarchy and How to Get Away with Murder and Veep. So I sent him this script, and I'm like, I just want to see if you connect with it. And he was like, been waiting my whole career to shoot a black rom-com like this. And we just gelled. And that was part of what made everything kind of fluid because he probably had the most experience on the crew. Okay. So just sometimes lower budget, you're working with lower budgets, right? I saw him like wrapping cable like in the corner. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, nothing, just the great attitude is what really made it happen. And we also imported, if you notice in the film, and you may not notice this, but all the women and men, but the women particularly had natural hair. So the women, you understand that. So when you don't have a lot of time and money, the last thing I want to be worried about is like wigs and not that that's a bad thing, but we didn't have time or resources to focus on that. So we imported one of my good friends, Khalid Patrice, raise your hand. She did, if you notice everyone's hair, she did everyone's hair naturally. The only person who wears a wig is Paula. And we know why she wears a wig, right? But I really wanted to try that. And she was instrumental in making that happen and look great. All the women look great, right? So this is like the 100th time I've screened this in a theater. And I'm looking at it thinking like, wow, the women really look great and natural. I just really want them to look natural and accessible. Believe it or not, that's not easy to do. You know this on TV shows. You're waiting on hair and makeup.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good tip especially for indie movies, like, cause you just don't have the time to consistently like mess with it.
But you don't sacrifice quality and elegance and beauty. So that was someone we imported to help do that.
Very cool. Amazing. I just want to go back to Post a little bit, just because like I was sitting outside, and I was crying when I watched it at the end, and I saw people exiting. Really, you really take us on a ride, and it's so beautiful and emotional, and just as you're talking with your editor, who you know so well, like. When you play the comedy, but then when you really take us at the end, just talk about that, because I think it's really you guys did a great job.
It was all there in the performance, and it was really a luxury of riches in terms of what the actors gave us and what we could choose from to cut the scenes together. My gosh, these guys came together and gelled, and then they saw like everybody just being so elevated and excellent. You could see them like, I'm going to raise my game, and then now we're watching like the Bulls versus Pistons. I'm from Detroit. So we're watching a great game with amazingly talented actors. And we're capturing this, right? We're capturing the magic as directors. And one of the things that I really wanted to accentuate in the storytelling, and I was really influenced by a movie called Ida. It's a Polish movie, it's quasi road trip film, and it's about two intergenerational women who go on a journey together, and they're in the car a lot. I want to use, if you can tell in the beginning of the film, we use colder palettes. It's bluer. You can look at their wardrobe. Celeste is wearing a dark coat. We really played with the color palette to make sure that we felt the coldness, not only in the atmosphere, but in the relationship between the two characters. And as the story begins to evolve, the palette gets warmer, and so do their wardrobe. And at the end, you see them back in the car together. It's the warmest we've seen of the palette, but you also see now Celeste. She almost has the same color coat as Paula, like, because she is becoming Paula. They're like two sides of the same coin. They just didn't know it. So they had to go on a journey together to figure out like what parts of each other that they could love and heal and evolve. So there were a lot of tools that we use, even in the interest of time, to accentuate the storytelling as the characters went on a journey and evolved.
Yeah. I love that movie, Ida. My first feature, Alaska's a Drag, we did all of our color and sound in Poland because we kind of ran out of money in the end and ended up our sound designer did Ida.
Wow.
Which was so cool because he would it was very old school.
Yes.
But maybe that brings me to the music and the sound design and, the music, especially throughout, like I want the soundtrack for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And it really does feel like that something I would play at a family celebration. And, all celebration and sadness. But tell me a little bit about it. I know you said in your liner notes you have that a lot of these are Aretha Franklin's B-sides, which B-sides, A-sides, it's right. Aretha Franklin.
Right.
But then you wove it also beautifully, your composer, with gospel, soul, R&B, were you editing it all along with the songs in mind?
Yes. So those songs were kind of written into the script. So being from Detroit, I'm a big Aretha Franklin fan, and I always see Aretha Franklin in movies that are not Black or low budget indie. And I just feel such a connection to the artistry that comes out of Detroit. That I just want to pay homage to Aretha. That's why I chose the B-side, because her B-side is banging. So I'm just like, that's how awesome Aretha is. And so those songs were written into the script. It's a low budget indie film, right? So my wonderful producer husband was like, we are going to afford these Aretha songs. We're going to allocate a portion of the budget for it. And we're going to make sure it ends up in the movie. And that's how we got the Aretha songs. We budgeted it. And one of our kids may not go to college, but Aretha's in the movie, right? And then I worked with the amazing composer, Leon Lacy, who the end credit song that you hear is Leon and Grace Gibson, who's singing the Albany Road theme song. And Grace Gibson is Lynn Whitfield's daughter. So it's really a little bit of a family affair, how it just all came together. And the first end credit song was produced and written by Donald Lawrence. Donald Lawrence is a Grammy award-winning producer that I cannot afford. But we worked together on a movie called Clark Sisters, and we just gelled. And that speaks a lot to building relationships, because sometimes people will do things for you as an artist when you can't afford them. And he was more than generous to create the song with a Grammy Award-winning gospel vocalist. And really, that's a Grammy level song. Yeah. So I'm from Detroit, so music is embedded into my DNA.
Yeah. No, it really shows, and it really feels like it's just embedded. I was wondering if it was all written in, because
most of it was, yes.
Yeah. Did you know Lynn Whitfield's daughter when you started working with her?
No, I didn't.
How'd that come about?
Well, she's a bona fide recording artist. I didn't know that. And Lynn met the composer, Leon Lacy, on set. And she was like, oh, I want you to meet my daughter. And then they just went off and created this song. And they're like, Christine, check this out. Tell us what you think. And I'm like, that's a hit song, So everything was kind of fortuitous that way. Once we kicked into gear, there was a lot of generosity of spirit and a heightened creativity among people who were just glad to participate in a story that they loved.
That's so cool. We have just a few minutes left, but I just curious from the artist point of view, like, is there a favorite scene that you're just really proud of, and maybe you could talk about it?
This is one of the things I do as a director, a movie director more so than a TV director, because TV is a writer's medium, movies is a director's medium, and like we don't get to control like the scenes, right? But in directing movies, I know that a scene is right if I love it. Sometimes you look at a scene and you're like, oh my gosh, I just hate this scene. What can I do about it? So I've seen this movie like 100 times in a theater at this point, and there's not a single scene that I'm like, oh, I should have cut that out, because there are multiple things happening that you could appreciate as a director. You're looking at the cinematography. You're listening to the sound design. You're looking at the performances. The production designer laid that wreath right there. And you're just like, wow, that was great wreath placement. You know, it's like a symphony, like when you're watching it. And I just never get tired of the symphony. So I love every friggin' scene. I'm just particularly fond of anything that Lynn is in. And because I see the rock star that is Lynn Whitfield, who I had certain perceptions of before I met her. And then I'm blown away by her post-movie. And I've learned so much from Lynn Whitfield, just in marketing and promoting the film. Like, she came from the Negro ensemble theater era. Like, she's a trained actress from Howard University, and like was working with Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. That's so old school that that generation they're going away. And there's a sadness that I feel about, like, what are we left with? Seriously, I'm like, what are we left with? So there's so much that I pull and learn from that generation that I just treasure. So that was a gift to me, was working with Lynn Whitfield, who I think gives one of the best performances of the year as Best Supporting Actress. I'm like, show me somebody who does it better, then I'll shut up. But I've yet to see it. And I just believe, like, I'm going to tell her age. She's like in her 70s. Don't tell her I told you, because she's very much not open about that. But like, you can easily look that up. But to see somebody still working with the level of love that she has for the craft makes me love what I do even more. I just treasure that. I'm trying to figure out what movie I can write next for Lynn. You know, I'm like, Lynn, what do you want to do? But she's just like, she needs to do more stuff, is all I'm saying. So y'all write something. Like, she really has a deep well. Yeah. So that was a blessing to me.
It feels like a love letter to her and a love letter to your mother-in-law and to all the mothers.
It's that generation of Black women, particularly. Like, I was raised by 65-year-old Black women from Mississippi. Like, I want to see them represented in storytelling in the way that I knew them and loved them. So, because I'm not seeing that to myself, I'm like, I'll do it myself. And I'll do it in a way, like, I know I did it right. But my cousins from Detroit are like, you did it, cuz, you know, they deserve to be seen in a really authentic way. So that is my goal as a storyteller, as a Black female filmmaker, is to tell stories about people that I know and love, but do it in such a way that actually taps into our humanity. And when we tap into our humanity, guess what? We discover that it's darn near universal. I screened this movie at Eberfest for 700 white people at the Virginia Theater. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? They're going to see this Black movie. How are they going to respond? They gave us 2 standing ovations. It just shows you that storytelling is colorblind. Yeah. And as artists, we need to lean on this even more. And we need to lean on that which gives us joy, especially right now.
Absolutely. We have to wrap up, but I just want to say thank you. Thank you for coming. But also, you know, the movie is out, right? And it's being released. And just as a quick wrap up, where can people see it?
Well, you've seen it, but AlbanyRoadMovie.com. AlbanyRoadMovie.com is where you can see where it's still playing. But more importantly, just live the joy that maybe you might have experienced, and just love on the people that you love, because we just need a little bit more of that right now. So
thank you, Christine. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America